Well, hello, my fellow gypsies, witches, pagans, and other weirdos and fun people of the 21st century. I wanted to use this video to outline a part of my book that details how the entheogenic sacred feminine was demonized during the early modern period under the impress of the Witches Ointment. So, when I first began my investigation into the Witches Ointment, I was looking for a specific kind of ointment that caused a specific kind of experience that is popularly called today a flying ointment, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Well, as I researched a little deeper and uncovered a couple of tidbits that hadn't really been looked at in several hundred years, what I found was not just a flying ointment, although there were flying ointments, but there was a variety of these kinds of ointments and potions and powders and fumigations. And as just a brief example of this variety, let's just take the popular flying ointment. Well, there wasn't even just a flying ointment. A flying ointment, at least according to the records that I've seen and documented in my book, a flying ointment could be broken down into subcategories. So, for example, you have flying ointments that are exactly that. They were ointments that people used to imagine, or they didn't think they were imagining, they thought the trips were real, but they could transport to a physical place on Earth, not any kind of supernatural realm. They weren't going beyond the veil or anything like that. It would be like a person in Brooklyn, rubbing a magic ointment, on her arm or whatever, and imagining that she's flying to Staten Island. Now, I don't know why anybody would ever want to go to Staten Island, whether in your mind or physically, but that's just an example of how they worked. It was a way to just go and report on and look at what was going on in a different place. Now, that was one kind of flying ointment. Another kind of flying ointment was very different and had everything to do with the worship of fertility goddesses and entheogenic experiences. And it was this kind of ointment, this entheogenic flying ointment, that was scooped up and reimagined and demonized into the witches' ointment. The witches' ointment that we think about today is actually a theological conceptualization, seen most notably in its finalized form in the 1484 publication of that most notorious inquisitorial tome, the Malleus Maleficarum. Now, in the Malleus Maleficarum, it says a couple of interesting things about these ointments. First and foremost, the ointments are used by women mostly, but sometimes men, to fly to meet the devil. Now, they didn't just go to meet the devil, but they went and flew to this satanic congregation called a Sabbat, where they would renounce Christianity, worship the devil, fornicate with demons, drink blood, all fun things to do on a Friday night. Now, this ointment that they're describing, this witch's ointment, has some very curious and actually somewhat grim ingredients. In fact, there's only one ingredient. It says that the ointment is made of the flesh of unbaptized children. Well, especially unbaptized children, but baptized children were just as vulnerable. So that's the witch's ointment, a salve made from boiled children's flesh that allows a person to fly to the devil and fornicate with demons, drink blood, do all that stuff. Now, the earliest references to this ointment say nothing of the sort. And in my book, I write about such men like Johann Nitter and Alonso Tostado, who were writing at least 4 or 5 decades before the Malleus Maleficarum about these ointments, and they not only say nothing about these satanic endeavors, they don't mention the Sabbat, but you can interpret what they wrote about these people having these experiences as entheogenic experiences. Like, that's what they sound like, and especially entheogenic experiences that pertain to the worship of fertility goddesses. So these are the earliest records saying this. In fact, Alonso Tostado, one of the writers I just mentioned, who I detail in the book, actually says that the ointments are made out of medical drugs. So again, there's nothing ghastly about these ointments. There's nothing satanic about these ointments. They're just entheogenic ointments, right? So, and that are outrightly said to contain natural narcotics. So one of the things that I demonstrated in my book is the journey that these entheogenic ointments took from where they started, which is these folk pagan ways of worshiping goddesses and different local spirits, to this idea, this ridiculous idea that they were made out of child's flesh and used to worship the devil. And if you're interested in this long, untold history of psychedelia and entheogenic use during the medieval times and into the early modern period, please check out my book, recently hot off the presses from Inner Traditions Park Street Press, titled The Witches Ointment, The Secret History of Psychedelic Magic. Or you can also, for more information, check out my website, rpsychedelia.com, and leave me a message there through the contact form. Thanks for listening, and see you around. Peace.